So there are also some things from my experience that I would like to bring in, because I think it's maybe very archetypical. um, yeah, just wondering about order, if it makes sense to maybe first go through some of the questions, because I imagine that what I will bring in kind of just opens in all directions, and maybe it would be cool to address some more specific
Yeah,
pieces first that the men brought
yeah,
in. Cool.
perfect.
Anything you would like or need before I bring in
No,
the stuff that the men shared?
no, nothing needed from my side. I just feel like there is a felt sense of satisfaction of you sharing that there are urgent questions and deep questions and courageous processes in the field, and that's like something, like if something those days in myself uh, and or around me, which is in the end the same, so it's about myself, dissatisfies me, it is this kind of staying shallow and staying safe. So I'm super grateful for this kind of, oh, I'm struggling, and I'm like, wow, okay, you did something right.
Yes.
Yeah.
Something to work with.
Yeah. Material.
Mm-hmm.
Something to burn for.
Yes. Yeah, so one thing that one man shared was being in the fog. So this experience of, if I remember his words, something like when I try to connect, for example, to my purpose or my vision or what's important to me, or when I want to have clarity, there's just this kind of fog, this kind of haze, and this like not being fully here, kind of, and not really knowing like how to navigate that.
Yeah. And he experiences that due to his processes and the group and the
Also, I think I know he experienced it before as well. He
yeah.
did something with me before, but in general, around the process of like taking charge of my life, like kind of getting more in the driver's seat and making my own choices.
Yeah, great.
Yeah.
It's tricky because like how I hear this question or sharing mainly is, it couldn't be better. Just because everybody wants to get around the phase of dissolution, or when we once had a conversation, this phase of the ashes. And the ashes are the ashes. And it's not phoenix, and it's not, wow, this is my mission, this is myself. It's just, I'm a mess. I'm everything. And most of all, I'm nothing. And not getting around that is something so courageous. And I think something, if we want to escape from that, we always stay somewhere on the surface. So I would encourage him and me and everybody else to keep going. Like this is the best direction, where every direction ended and every direction does not have any meaning. This fundamental disappointment, I was building the biggest mission still on something so cheap, because I was running from nothingness, from emptiness, from senselessness. And then the tricky thing is not fading with this so important experience in my, let's say, in my mind, even though I don't like to differentiate between embodiment and mind, because I think the mind is the body. However, in my mind, there is this kind of vastness and fog, and I have no idea where to go, if anything is a mistake or good or improve something or what's going on. And at the same time, staying brutally physical. Because if we don't do that, we can get caught up in depression or in like psychic patterns. And this brutally physical thing is, for example, working a lot with rage, working a lot with a foam roller, a lot with strong physical sensations on my skin, and really going into muscle pain. I mean, if nothing else works because you are so exhausted, I would even go to a very strong, painful spot massage. But as long as you can somehow push yourself, go, because you are not motivated, go into physical workout, go into your legs, go into your arms. Because otherwise we do not experience the purity of the fog that is important. what we experience somehow, even in order to escape the fog, the kind of collapse, the kind of shutdown. And that's the opposite. It doesn't get us anywhere.
Yes.
So I think that's super important. And in that case, I mean, we might come up to the question, but getting alive, becoming alive more and more is so often something of doing it out of pure obsession and desperation instead of motivation. Like if you are in the fog, you fucking don't want to move, so fucking move. There is something of, I'm not discussing with myself, not here. Something really, being almost a soldier against myself in order to,
Because if at that point we kind of stop, we collapse and we get stuck in a depression easily.
Exactly. Because the fog is somehow in the collective everywhere, but it is in the collective everywhere as burnout, depression, and resignation.
Yes.
So we are not allowed to underestimate the collective impact on us. Like we are not allowed, we can do whatever we want. But when somebody manages on his way through to aliveness, the way into the fog, I would like to just keep going, but never, never, never stop. And there is something where the poles of surrender and fierce movement cooperate and need each other and are one and the same. And you need both of them. If your life is just stagnation, get out of there. The fog might be enlightening. It doesn't help you anywhere because you end up in depression. So that, and I think the collective fields where so many nervous systems are trapped and somehow should stay trapped when we come to the terms of the system, which is not a bad one, but a traumatized one. I think it's super, super helpful to also have like a community like you have, or we have with these men at the moment, who are just like, wow, okay, let's get angry tomorrow, 7 a.m. all together with you. But you will get angry and we will give you a phone call after that you did that. So something of no discussion.
Yes. I think the what you're just sharing, it reminds me of some voice messages that we exchanged. Somehow, like in the voice message, there was the difference between drama and suffering.
Yeah.
And now it's a bit like the difference between fog and collapse. Exactly. Because I think I thought until now that being in the fog is already a sign of collapse.
Yeah. And it isn't, but it is like almost built onto the fog is the collective narrative of we are meant to be shut down and we are meant to be collapsed. So that is why there is this huge danger of staying to the purity of the vastness, the purity of the dissolution, the purity of the fog. And if you somehow deal a little bit with it, navigate, manipulate, communicate a little bit with it, like could it be a little bit more direction and a little bit more mission and a little bit more about myself or something? Could I be a little bit doing better in this process? This is the moment when we are almost getting into some kind of self-image. How am I performing with the fog? And then we are going into depression. I do not deserve getting fully in.
Wow.
And that's interesting because in the end, the fog kills us and aliveness kills us. We are way less important for aliveness than we think. It's not our aliveness or party performance. It's really something of stop finding your life's mission because life is flowing through you like an ocean. Like you are in danger with your own power inside. And it's not about, I'm so alive. So yeah, when we want to perform well with the fog, we fail because we entered a game with it, and we played with the wrong fire, basically.
Yes, and we try to control it.
Exactly, it's me who wants to be alive, but there is a point. The better I'm doing the homework, and this man is obviously doing it great. There is a point where I have to let go of either aliveness or me. And then it's so humiliating that I'm just, but yeah, having this wave after wave of life force is on the other side, of course, more direction and at the same time, no not needing a direction. And I think the two of us also talked a lot about the men's movement and mission and purpose and there is something in this masculine energy and purity that is pure. And there is something that's just running away from, we have nothing under control. And we feel ashamed for just being.
Yes.
And we shouldn't have to decide between having a strong, powerful, impactful mission on a global level and being completely just of service to life without being important.
Can you say more about the I didn't understand the last sentence?
I think when I say, or what I said basically in the last sentence was, we shouldn't have to decide between, I have a mission, I have a strong purpose, I have a focus, this is just me, and I'm going for that no matter what until I die. This is a very pure essence, and it's like, it won't go away. But we miss it when we say, oh, my mission, oh, this is what I am. Because then we are never surrendering to life living us. And life living me is not, oh, now I stop the Zoom calls, I stop the output. It's maybe quite the opposite. It's my life puts me in front of a camera together with David in order to jam on collective and individual shadows, like and doing expeditions there. But that's so much more me and you surrendering, or men around surrendering to their inner power of longing for aliveness than of saying, I deserve a better world, so give me some tools that finally work. It's like, we go into the race like that, but we won't finish the race like that. At least we won't win it like that. We enter as the winners because we are humble. The race teaches us how to run. In the beginning, we are just fumbling around. And this kind of, it should be about me, is the first thing that has to break. And there is a fog, because then it's like, it's not your mission. It's just that you are free to be alive or not. So just choose. Does that make sense, or is that the point that you were asking about?
Yes. I'm still with the sentence that you said briefly before that. At some point, you have to either let go of me or of aliveness.
we can delete that. Forget about it. It's bullshit.
Yeah.
Here's your next question. Exactly. Could you change topic, David? Stop remembering me.
How do I become more powerful?
Yeah. Becoming more unimportant. And we have been so neglected in what we are that we, of course, crave for being important, for mattering. Yes. But yes. The truly important, like where we really matter for ourselves and around, is not by people giving you standing ovations. It just doesn't happen from there. It's like the really satisfying kind of resonance in myself and around. Your existence deeply matters, only comes in that amount that is truly more than enough for us when we really let go of needing it or wanting it, manipulating anything in order to make that happen. Before that, every compliment is just cheap. And that's so bitter, but it's so much a process of my current weeks and days. And I can see so clearly how I create an insane amount of frustration and hatred into all directions in my life, and or a ticket to freedom. Yeah. And I would love that to share more time with more people, or even more people around who are not, that I cannot buy with anything. I cannot smile at them and make them love me. You know what I mean? I would learn so much from so much more people around, like all of us would.
Hmm. 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 Hmm.
Mm.
Something in what you said just reminded me of a kind of love that that pierces through these layers, and it's almost like I fucking love you, but really not for the things that you think.
Yeah, exactly.
Hmm.
And it's not maybe breaking your heart because you are not seen with your, let's say, reasons for loving her or him, but it's like, if you would know how much just my love, just this love, just proves that your existence matters.
Hmm.
Like without me, it's just, this is me seeing that you exist.
Hmm.
And yeah, we do not see that when we are loved. We make a story around that. Ah, yeah, and that's hmm.
Hmm. There was one other comment that I think is very related, but I just want to bring it in. One man shared, you know, through doing this practice, I often wake up in the morning feeling really bad and unmotivated. And I kind of look at the practice of shaking as like, oh yeah, that's going to make me feel better. And when I go into the shaking with that intention, it doesn't work.
And did he share what happens when he goes into the shaking without the intention of making it better?
I think that was part of the question. It's almost like, I think the question was more like, how can I be in a state before the shaking so that I don't go into this place of desperation maybe and like, oh, I need the shaking to change something because this really sucks.
Yeah. It's interesting because yes, shaking changes. And I think it's not about the shaking should change my state or not, but about him knowing into which direction it should change him. And that doesn't work. Like shaking just changes from stagnation, from repetition, from routine to openness.
Yes.
Openness is open into all directions. It's like when I say, I want to shake with my little finger, it doesn't work because shaking says either or. I mean, either you shake your stuff up or you don't. But which direction, baby, this is still my job. And I think that it's not about not going into shaking with no intention or no idea, just standing there blindly and someone not knowing what he's doing. I think that's not the goal. But the goal would be a deeper surrender to, I will be surprised. Will I be more depressed after shaking? Let's figure it out. Yay, I'm more depressed after shaking. Let's see how it is tomorrow. Will I be again more depressed? No, this time it's a little bit more desperation. Next time it's frustration, and next time it's hatred. Great. But allow the shaking over and over again to surprise you instead of to make you feel better. And it is a tricky thing because all of us are so numbed out around aliveness that of course aliveness is a positive thing. But the ticket to aliveness is not, I want the positive stuff, but I want my stuff because I want my fucking energy back. And I'm fucking impatient. I'm reclaiming all of that right now. It's like, okay, ocean, whatever, wave. I take everything. Main thing for me is stopping functioning and starting breathing, starting sensing. And if we go into this kind of surrender to whatever change, I would be curious about his experience. The moment that shaking brings something exactly the same up twice, he somehow didn't went into shaking, but into, I could do Qigong and I could do shaking. And nothing against Qigong, it's an own universe, but there is something of, this is not a technique. This is tearing all techniques out of your hands and making you be the tiger that you are.
Yes. This is so good because, okay, so this really reflects my own process and my own experience that I'm going through right now so strongly. Is I'm suffering a lot. Like I have really, really tough nights of like not falling asleep, waking up, skin really uncomfortable. So like it's really nasty stuff. It really sucks. And it's different every night.
Wow.
Every night is different. And it's like whenever I talk about it, I look at it and it's like it does not stagnate. That's like the one thing that I can see.
Wow. David, just a moment. I honor you for that. Thank you. It takes so much being with something that's so deeply seated in oneself, having made so much space that it comes up and staying with it doesn't stagnate. Thank you. I honor you for that. Really. Thank you. It touches me.
Thank you.
And I hear you as much as I can around this really just sucks.
It sucks so bad. Like there's no, I tried it all, like the and that's actually the point I wanted to go towards is as long as I try to make a story of healing out of it, I'm losing.
Yeah.
Because as you said, I cannot control this process. And also that's why it changes every day, every night is such an anchor for me, because what the fuck do I know if this means that I'm going through a powerful healing process or it just means I'm fucking things up so badly that I'm in deep disbalance, or both at the same time? I don't know.
Yeah. It's interesting because it's such a wonderful story around what we talked about. The moment that I make up any story is the moment that I commit to losing the game. I get losing the game. Because me being so smart and informed about my skin and the cycles of healing, that this is for sure a healing process, is not me being in charge and empowered and wise and having a breakthrough, but it is about me being a victim of this has to be true.
Yes.
So let's be fucked up in the first place. No comment. And that is also, and I think that's a beautiful thing, that is the moment that we are truly resilient or immune to others commenting on us, because everybody has some kind of chronic disease and everybody isn't living in your skin. So the moment you share it is the moment that you are putting yourself into a high amount of risk of being re-traumatized somehow by the people around saying, oh, I understand you, and they understand fucking nothing because they're afraid of their own chronic disease and their own its pain. So in that moment that I do not need to tell you a story. I'm just telling you about night after night, having another experience that really, really sucks at the moment. That is the moment when they can comment or not comment, be on or off, can be of true help and do not have to be of true help. But the moment that you're presenting them a story that needs to be true, everything can destroy you. And that's the last thing that you or somebody else in a deep state of suffering can afford or should afford. I mean, energy is a rare good in those. Like, oh, just another moment. I make another moment. And that's like, yeah, that's great. Like, stay invested with the hard stuff of breathing.
Yeah. Yeah, I talked to my partner about this yesterday, is that it really often touches me how she's being present with me, because she sees my suffering. She doesn't reduce me to it. Like, she can see through it. And she's open enough to also be in that space of, I don't know if this is really unnecessary what you're going through, or if this is a really deep fucking healing journey. I don't know. And I said, and yeah, I noticed, and like we just had this conversation, it made me so fucking angry to realize that a big stress for me with my skin is how other people react to it. It's exactly this kind of, yeah, like the pity and I rarely experience it, that someone is like, oh, wow, that's what you're going through. It sounds intense.
Yeah. I mean, everybody wants to hear your story in order to know it better, or say yes or no to your story. And there is something of, we need the story around, otherwise we are in the fog.
Yes, exactly. So it's like, to some people, I don't really talk, like, I'm not interested in talking about my health, because I know that what they make of it is so far away from my experience. That
it's not helpful to then be touched or treated or listened to in a way of, let me be of help. What a needy, egoistic thing.
Yes.
Just give me your ear if you want to give me your ear. That's all.
Yes.
Like, you're not of help.
Yes.
Don't touch my skin in order to give me some kind of good vibes. If I ask you to, that's fine. But there is something so much about, I won't accept that I'm helpless, and I will use your story in order to prove that my existence matters. So I want to be your healer. And it's like, first thing of a healer is he has to know how to die. So could you please die first of all and then touch my skin? Like, let's get your stuff out of the way. And that's difficult, because the ill ones are the weak ones. So they are the ones where we can win more easily with our performance, which is always a losing game. Yeah.
What comes up for me now, which really touches me, is like, in this process and this stuff that I'm experiencing, somehow finding dignity in my suffering.
Yeah.
Like, exactly this kind of, yeah, it sucks. I'm not interested in medicating in a way, like, what would that do?
Yeah.
And I don't know, like, I'm here. I'm alive.
And it's basically, yes, finding dignity, but the main thing is stopping handing your dignity over to somebody else, no matter what. I mean, every situation is, you are walking dignity. There is no way around. But we are handing over to this, handing over to that, to the income, to the messed up relationship, to the chronic disease, to the outer appearance. Like, we are always justifying that we are externalizing our dignity, and the outer world doesn't give us this dignity.
Yes.
And there is another thing, just very briefly, but when you said, and I know you didn't like mean it exactly that way, but I do not know if this is unnecessary or a deep healing journey. Most deep healing journeys go through phases of unnecessary stuff. Like, we are looping and looping and looping, and by looping we finally figured out there is no need for loop on earth. But it's really us being humiliated by, I am trapped in myself. And it's just, we don't go into the challenge and manage our way through. We go into, and we stay, and we suffer, and we suffer. And this is unnecessary. But how to see, like, how to exit the unnecessary stuff is something why we why we are put into the unnecessary stuff in order to study it from within. So I want to also like encourage us to take pride in being looping in unnecessary stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, that's why I think I tried to put it more as like maybe it's simultaneously both.
Yeah. And I don't know, it's just that in general, it's like, does this have to be? Most likely not. Most human stuff doesn't have to be like that. And all of us are looping anyway. So we are talking about, let's loop in one topic, one level less.
Yes.
But I mean, mankind is a story of unnecessary loop of suffering. That's what it comes down to. So let's study how to exit that. And yeah, that's so wonderful. So rich.
There's one more piece that it seems so connected to everything that the men are bringing in is, we touched on it already, but still, like the expectations or the stories that I have on how the process is meant to unfold.
Yeah.
And it's exactly this, like unwillingness to surrender to what the fuck do I know how the process is meant to unfold.
Yeah. And
there's somehow such an, I don't know if that's the right way to put it, but like an arrogance of like telling myself that I know how this is supposed to look like.
And I think then we have this huge, let's say, spiritual teachings around don't be arrogant, be humble, etc. And that is somehow where we end up in the end. But the main thing, why do we have an idea of where the process should lead us? The main thing is not we have a good idea. The main thing is we are afraid of those things that are excluded by the good idea. So we are run by fear and not by wisdom when we are having an idea about our process. So it's like, why do you need a direction of this process into healing or into being loved? Because you're afraid of not being loved, not worthy of love, of not healing. So how about putting your definition of happiness into I will be happy anyway. Let me be the sickest man on earth. I will be fucking happy. I dare you. I will be happy. Something like that. So there is a fear that we are running from, and we are demonstrating intelligence, which is stupid and a coward.
Yeah, and that's what gets reflected back. Yeah, now it makes more sense to me, like why people react the way they do when I share about my suffering is that we all walk around believing that happiness is absence of suffering.
Yeah.
And so then it's terrible when you're suffering.
Yeah.
And it's a narrative that keeps me completely unfree.
Yeah. I'm always in danger of the moment being there as well.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. Only positive thoughts. Fuck, I think there's somewhere negative thoughts in my mind. Yeah. No.
And really, I mean, in your kind, it's some kind of funny demonstration, but I heard many people being terrorized by knowing that their thoughts form their existence, and then saying, all those negative thoughts. And I'm like, oh, you are way fuller with negative thoughts than you can even count or get aware of. So relax. I mean, you are doing everything in order to make this be fucked up. So that's not the winning. That's not the level that is in charge anyway. It's your nervous system and not your mind or thoughts. So there is something of really, I'm terrorized by those paradigms that I installed in my life in order to heal. or this might happen, but I heard it very, very often, like people
Yes.
really, really being tortured by getting aware of the fact, becoming aware of the fact that they have negative thoughts all day long.
Yes.
And that's again, like, as well as with suffering, it's like, then I do not deserve a better life. And that's exactly the dignity question.
Can you say that again?
The suffering and this, if I think so many negative thoughts, no wonder that my life is so miserable.
Uh-huh.
All of that is something that we hold on to because we do not deserve a life that is fully alive. And this not deserving is this dignity question. Like, do you hand you deserving a fully alive life over to your skin? Hopefully not.
What I hear you advocate a lot is going into chaos. And I wonder, right? It's like I heard you say, don't give people too soon some kind of model or concept so that they can understand what they're going through and kind of, this is good because I'm on the right track, blah, blah, blah. I do think it's helpful sometimes to have that.
I totally agree. You are right. And maybe it's also a conversation about chaos on which level and orientation within the chaos on another one.
Mm-hmm.
I personally would say, I talk again in these terms, which is a bit weird for me. If my mind wouldn't be informed about the higher picture, the bigger picture, or the horizon, or the metrics of life, I wouldn't go into these fields of death and hell and suffering. So there is some kind of meta orientation, at least for some people, maybe people like me, wired a little bit like addicted to headspaces as well, where we need the mind to be informed and oriented in the first way. If the mind gets insane while I experience insanity, I'm insane.
Yes.
If I'm fully consciously going through death and insanity, I learn. I learn in hell and I suffer a lot, but I learn. So I totally agree. And just on a very basic level, I think how these poles of clarity or chaos, how we could put that into action both at the same time is be informed about what you are doing with your life force when you shake your life force up, when you allow the organization in your energy, in your nervous system, in your body, to fully go out of holding patterns and numbed out patterns. It's basically going into chaos is an equivalent for shaking. It's like just get rid of old rigid structures in your nervous system, in your body, in your muscles, in your bones, etc. And that is a process that throws you into chaos, which is maybe just another frame like fog. I mean, people might experience a collapsed form of chaos, and that is the depression and the fog and the vastness and nothing makes sense. And others are like, wow, roller coaster all day long. I don't sleep, I'm maniac, whatever. And that's like, it's a hyper aroused, it's a contracted form of dissolution. In both cases, it works because first of all, the dying of the old structures before new structures can take over that come this time from the inner world instead of the outer world again. But I do need some kind of information. And I would say, but that's just a thought that I have at the moment, but I have some kind of fun with this thought. There are also thoughts that are fun. The more we have a community, like for example, both of us are talking in the moment about this privileged setting of exploring together with others instead of me alone, you alone, meeting once a month and think, well, I'm still in the chaos. I think the more the community keeps breathing and shaking and going out of stagnation anyway, there is a felt sense information. So the more I could afford having no idea about the direction. And that might be also why so many spiritual traditions were just loaded and charged with so many generations and teachers and disciples, etc., who knew the path by having gone it. So they could just say, just do it. Just do the meditation, next year, next meditation, then the next initiation. They could afford giving no information about the process. But, and I'm super much a fan of knowing the process and figuring it out. Mm-hmm. And I also, to be honest, I would love to share more about the metrics of the process. Mm. But then we end up in discussion. Mm-hmm. And then you share your clarity, David. And the best thing that I can do is doubting it, wanting you to prove me, wanting you to prove to me that you are right and that it's worth it giving it a try. Mm-hmm. And the best thing that then you could say is like, you know what, Ilan, at the moment you are sitting in front of a computer screen and wanting to discuss in order to not get into movement. So check it first. That's a tricky thing because we are like, yes. Who says so? Well, my soul says so. So, and what do you have to lose? We are losing anyway. So there is also something tricking around giving information in the first place, but on some level information has to be embedded in the process. Otherwise, chaos is just re-traumatization. So I fully agree. And it's maybe something that has been really very incomplete in how we talked about that until now, when you clarified there is something that is needed. If you do not abuse and misuse your information and your wisdom for getting around the shitty stuff,
yes,
you can be enlightened in the first place. But the moment you tap into that wisdom in order to make yourself a little bit better on the process, it's like, oh baby, not with me, don't play with me. It's like you're playing with life.
Yes, which is what we do all the time. So yeah, I get it.
Yeah,
so it's tricky.
It's tricky. It's exactly the same kind of trickiness as with fog and depression. Don't go into depression and fully go into the fog, but master that. Be so fully informed, and then like, this won't be fun. Wow, that's Then we could have all those answers in the very first place. And there is something so beautiful. I want to share that because it's on my mind when we jam around those different aspects of the journey is, why are we saying this? Like, why am I asking you if you are right, David? Why? Am I running from my fear of my own hell? So I shouldn't ask, or at least you shouldn't answer. And why am I so onto my mission? Because I'm afraid of being useless. So let's learn to be useless, full of dignity in the first place.
Yes.
And then finding your mission. And then your mission is there way sooner and way more powerful than you could have imagined. I mean,
yes.
We are onto a mission. But at the moment, it's just stuff.
This is so cool. This really helps me put words onto, I mean, I've talked to you a bit about this, like this, it's like one phrase that keeps coming back for me is embody your purpose. And this is like, well, first arrive in the body, arrive in the chaos, arrive in all the things that you don't want to see, and from there see what emerges. Yes. But it's like, if you leave that fucking piece out, just stop doing it. Just forget it.
Yeah. I mean, the body is in charge anyway. And it's like, if your mission takes you, it needs your energy. It needs your rage. It needs you going through challenge after challenge. So it's like, just unleash your energy. Otherwise, your mission is a nice theory. It's on your website, but then it's nowhere else.
Yes, and then and then like rehearsing in my mind, like, what is my mission? My mission is to help them.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. Uh, one thing that comes up as we talk is um, a really good friend of mine who I really admire wrote something that made me think a lot. She said, there's this group of people who have realized that your thoughts shape your experience, right? Like the way that I think does have an impact on the universe. So, from that, all the, whatever, positive thinking and manifestation, all these things emerged, and like Think and Grow Rich, these kinds of things. And then she said, and then there's a group, and she says, like, those are like even bigger weirdos and mystics and like outcasts who realize that there is, like, yes, your thinking has an impact, and there's a whole nother universe which is in feeling.
Yeah.
And that there is maybe even more guidance to be found by feeling, by arriving in the body.
Yeah.
And it somehow really helped me, I don't know, like put things into perspective. And then she like concluded with, well, and like both are important. It's not like it's only one, but it's like put them in the right order.
Yeah.
The mind is not wrong, but it's like if it runs the show.
Yeah. And it's, I mean, this, my thoughts shape my experience. Let's think another way. It's so popular, it can't be powerful enough. It's not destructive enough. It's not transformative enough. It just isn't. Otherwise, it wouldn't have grown so fast, so easily, so popular. The truth is something that nobody has heard. You just forgot. But something that somehow fits into a little bit of challenge within the comfort zone of the collective. Welcome.
Yeah, then like this added piece is somehow this deep mistrust towards our body. Like, I think that's one of the reasons why, I don't know, like in men's work, there's a lot this kind of, well, don't get lost in the like self-pity and like, oh yes, all your feelings, blah, blah, blah. Which I think like there's a truth to it. Like, yes, you can get lost in it, but it's like, and that's why I don't arrive in my body. Like, that's why I don't learn to feel my stuff. That doesn't make sense to me. So there's somehow like, yeah, it seems to me that there's like a very deep mistrust towards my own body. And I rather stay in my mind because somehow that's, I don't know, more trustworthy.
I mean, to be honest, even playing around with our feelings is the cheap stuff. That's easy. The thing that feelings are built by is sensations, and sensations as a reflection of energy moving in my body. So the whole story is not about, to be honest, there is no mind. There are no thoughts. Thoughts are a reflection of energy still moving a little bit, but mainly is supposed to not flow, to stay stagnant. So it's like my thoughts are a reflection or a symptom of my energy wanting to moving a little bit and then staying stuck. This is 99.9% of all thoughts. They are a symptom of energy trying or fighting for flow and then losing the battle, let's say it like that. So it's not about emotions. It's not about our childhood. It's not about feelings. Because even in my feelings, I stay important and I stay in charge because these are my feelings and this is my rage. It's fucking not. It's an ocean moving through you. And the moment you are dead, it's moving through a mouse. Who are you? What do you think? And so surrendering to sensations is surrendering to physicality. And all of our concepts around layer after layer, here are the thoughts, here's the mind, and here are the feelings, they are all symptoms of fragmentation, which is disembodiment. So the moment you are tracking what you are doing, that we are mistrusting our body, is like, then let's get back to our body. And there is no harder job on earth, and there is no harder path to whatever kind of process than full embodiment. And especially for men, because me as a woman, if I embody myself, I'm just a being in danger, because the world around me, which is a male world, can overpower me. But if you are embodying yourself, David, you are a being of danger. You will be a monster. I will just be killed. But you will be guilty and you will have to stay alive. So your job during full embodiment is way harder. And still, there is no better phrase for me to say how to get fully alive. Go fully into your body. That's all you need to know. Figure out how to do it. Figure out how to survive the path. Figure out how much you can go into obsession. Figure out as much as you can. But that's a summary of the whole thing. Don't pay attention to your thoughts. You will think a lot of negative thoughts on the path. You will feel a lot, but there are no emotions. Emotions are just a frequency of energy moving. And that is why we say feel your feelings. But in the end, it's a trick. It's like, oh, I'm busy with feeling my feelings. And the nervous system is like, do whatever you want, but I'm going with my wave of energy. And that's what the thing is about. And we could escape from looping and suffering and negative feelings super fast if we would go just into sensations without any kind of story. But that's shocking because the body doesn't know drama. So it's like, yes. I would even say, hey, keep feeling your feelings, also to myself. Like, Ilan, just feel your anger. That's a good thing. Just because the moment that there is no bad one around, there is no one who traumatized me. It's just boom, this moment. It's like, do I really want to pay the price for fast healing, being so unimportant, so humiliated with my story? No. So yeah, it's big. It's a compromise. Feel your feelings as a compromise.
Yes, I get it. It's like feelings or emotions are sensations personalized in a way, like woven into a story.
Yes, you are in between. And that's so nice because it works, even though it works slowly and it works with a lot of negative feelings.
Yes.
And you are right, the negative feelings are not necessary. They are a loop. But then it's like, oh, let's go into mindfuck in order to escape the loop. No, let's go into sensation. That would exit the loop.
Yes. Wow, this is so helpful.
Wait, let's try. I'm not sure. It's just not funny having just a sensation. Being just a sensation, that is it.
Yes.
Have your feelings, but you are your sensations, which is the rest is deleted. And that's like, okay, that's the end of fun. I want it to matter. Yeah.
Yeah, it's helpful because it helps me. I think that's what, I don't know, I seem to somehow be learning in this process that I'm in, is to be more with the sensations and to see there is nothing inherent in these sensations. Like there's no story in it. There's no like it's good or it's bad or it's just sensations.
Yes. Yes.
And then it's so weird. And then it's like I can maintain that by myself for some time, and as soon as it comes to interacting with other people, it's pretty tough to stay on that level because it's hard to communicate from there. Like it's hard to make yourself in any way understandable.
Yeah. And I think, but that's also some kind of what I'm super curious about, and therefore people have to meet in person in most cases, is like you are in such an opened up state to life, changing moment by moment, changing you and changing itself moment by moment. Then you meet, for example, me, and I'm in my structure. So is it like do you get out of the state because you cannot communicate, or because my energetic impact, which is a very structured, conditioned, routined one, I'm just not on your level of aliveness at the moment, is like, then there is a co-created field. So that would be also interesting, like the if we could make that visible. Like states are also meeting and changing in the meeting, and at the end of the game, who wins? I mean, how easily the whole planet would heal if those ones with the opened up energy would have the bigger impact. But at the moment, it's just the other way around. We are going holiday and retreat and having time alone and having time with the one person I can share ecstasy with, and the rest of my life is shitty. And that's like, that somehow has to change. And that is why I think it makes so much sense to say aliveness, ecstasy, bliss needs rage. Otherwise you just collapse before I open the door. And I shouldn't have this kind of influence on you. I mean, if I would shower you with enlightenment, that would be another story. But I'm drawing you down into depression again.
And somehow, like, two things come up. One is, somehow for me it's helpful to acknowledge that, yes, people do have an impact on me. Like, so that it doesn't turn into this kind of, okay, I'm supposed to be this whatever energetic master who's just like always in my field and doesn't give a shit about like where the space other people are coming in from. But yeah, I can really relate to what you're saying, like where I am right now. And I mean, it's something I experience often, is like when I spend time with people who just talk and talk and talk and talk. They, like, I think if I wouldn't stop them, they would talk for hours without a pause. And I find it really fucking hard to find a way to stay connected to myself. I mean, I could probably just like, I mean, burn them. Just be like, stop. I cannot hear a single word anymore. And maybe I'm just too scared to do it. But also I'm curious, like, okay, this is probably a trap that I'm preparing for myself right now, but I'm curious if there's a way to embody rage, to stay in like the whatever the frequency that I want to be in, without burning the other person, without making them feel like, you know, they are bad and wrong and they're supposed to do it different because they are killing my state. Like, that's kind of what I fall into, and I really don't like it. It feels really
I think yes, there is a way, because I think the moment that the outer world can influence us in an unwelcomed way is the moment that we already are in a collapsed state on some level. It might be comparably little amount of collapse. Still, there is an invasion of the outer world into the inner world that doesn't feel like a co-created win-win situation, but a lot of loss of energy. So you have to be part of the problem. So you have to have hidden some kind of energy in the first place. And then, and that's a bigger conversation, but that's super interesting. And I'm super scared of being convinced of that, because it means so much. If there is no enemy out there, if the inner world is the outer world, if the inner world is good, the outer world is good. Let's say it like that. There is no perpetrator. There is no bad one. That's a story. There is no field that can destroy your state. But then there is something of, am I fully in my field? It's like, then I'm still ready to fight because I know that I'm the stronger one. That's a very unfree matrix. And quite the opposite, if you manage to be in that high state, out of surrendering to a whole night of suffering with your skin, you are opened up to life. So who are you then, jumping out of your bed, having your field, having your rage in a way of, I will push you away, instead of, I can push you so easily away that I can allow you to fully penetrate me with whatever. There is no influence and power over me that you can possibly have just because you want that. You can talk for days and nights, one mindfuck after the other. And it can flow and flow, because in the end, it is energy. And that also is what we talked about. There is no state or point in the universe that has less energy than another one. But we are referring to them different states of flow, which is a story of victimhood. And that is a story of differentiation. But that, of course, means a lot, because it means something so different to the healing paradigm that we need certain circumstances, and we need safety, and we need understanding, and we need love in order to heal. To be honest, I know how it is to be held and to be loved and to be healed. And it's such an insanely wonderful blessing. It's more than perfect. And I know it's such an evil trap if I start then waiting for that, because I will need them.
Yes.
Most people do not have that even once in their life. So who are we telling them that they need that? That's such a miserable job of support. So the other, let's say the more modern healing metrics is keep being exposed to toxics, to danger, to overwhelm, and to too muchness around you. I'm so sorry, Tiger, but this is where you have to make it. Because you have to make it there, because this is your life right now. Because billions of other suffering tigers have to make it there anyway, because they do not have the money for a computer or for time with an online course or whatever. They just do not have that. They need your walking embodiment for getting this path. And we do not want to end up as a privileged culture, having abused our privilege for disembodying even more from others. It's like, that's not surrender. That's still a power game. And then I'm overpowering you with my amount of privileges.
Yes.
So I'm very like sorry to say, I think the more modern way for healing is learning in the friction, in the ongoing sense of I can't stand it anymore. And it's tricky because, at least in my experience, the more I say, okay, life, take me, show me what I'm capable of in handling as chaos. It's like life says, we go a little bit over your felt sense edge, which will expand your real edge, which is always beyond what you think you're capable of. And you manage that. And then tomorrow I will come with the next challenge. It is tricky. It is tricky because I'm somehow like, the willingness of the inner power to say that's fucking right, and the only thing I want to be here for, is so strong that it's somehow like that deletes you and gives you your mission at the same time. And that's a risky thing. It's really like what I'm saying at the moment is give life this, but I want to say in the same recording, life will take your whole body. It will take you so much. And that's somehow like, or don't give it the little finger. Because the moment that you are saying high five, I'm in the challenge, is the moment that life says, okay, next module tomorrow. Wow. Yeah. But so just to make very sure, like this fiery path of I'm fully mastering my energy. If you would master energy, you wouldn't be afraid of the energy of a mindfuck. It's not you stay in your center. It's you having no center. It's you not being a being in danger. And we can compare that to the like spiritual or whatever traditions around fire and water, but also to healing, which is somehow, let's have a protected space and this is safe and I fully understand you. It's wonderful when it works, and it works. And it is a hell of self-disgust and desperation if we say this is what you need, otherwise it can't work. just because it's so privileged and so rare that we cannot afford put our healing hope on a collective or individual level on this circumstances. Yes. The circumstances globally will become worse. The circumstances globally will become worse. We better act now in updating our paradigms for healing, or we will just be the better informed sufferers.
And I like the way you frame it, because it doesn't mean that I reject these healing spaces. So,
not
because that's like, remember when I shared with you this voice message of like, oh, now like my new dogma is always go into the suffering. Like when there's like a healing space, be like, no, I need more destruction.
Yes, not at all, not at all. But if you're not afraid of suffering catching you, and you manage it in the suffering with dignity no matter what, you open up self-love. And when you open up self-love, you have those graceful moments with communities, with people who understand you. It's like the outer world is a gift waiting for you, but you have stopped to wait. You have stopped waiting for this gift. Because we wait for it because we think we need it, and you do not need it. And there might be in a few years burning hell around us, and I'm serious. It's not a joke. The global state is insanely dangerous in the amount of forces, and there are no bad ones, and that's one of the biggest problems. We cannot hate somebody. There might be people around who think they are the bad guys. They are not. They are traumatized. And I truly do not want to have abused my privileges in this culture, with this money, with this knowledge, with this work, with this life, just in Germany, where no bombs are falling at the moment, in order to collapse as one of the first ones, because I wasn't prepared for the toughness and the reality of life and death, and the reality of suffering. And I do not want other people being around me really suffering and me giving them some kind of tips. That's just shabby. And for that, it might have some kind of wise instinct to, for some time, running from wellness or being turned off by holiday, because it's like, who am I having a beach party? I mean, who am I?
Yes.
Who am I? I will abuse the beach party in order to get along, and that will be a fucking lie. So there is no reason today for celebrating on that level. But when we somehow, like on purpose, not running away from hell, it's like hell says, oh baby, I don't exist. Have some fun. You're sweet. You're doing great. And that is, I think, when we fall so deeply in love with aliveness, that we say, I will go through hell again and again and again. There is nothing that can stop me. Like, life is so wonderful. We won't escape this fact. We will just escape, as we already did, from the awareness of this fact. Yeah, life is so wonderful.
There's one last piece that I want to
of course,
take, and then I think come to an end of this part one. Somehow in how you spoke about this kind of like getting overwhelmed by mindfuck, gave me, I don't know, like an image and a felt sense of the poles of like rage and surrender becoming one.
Yeah.
So like rage not being this kind of nothing penetrates me. More like everything penetrates me.
Yes. And that's like, for example, fog and depression. If we confuse rage with nothing penetrates me, we are not talking about rage. We are trapped in a nervous system, not being allowed to have an own existence, but wanting so badly. And then it's like, but that's force. Like that's forced fake anger. But rage is, I exist full-heartedly. Rage is the energy that fills your field with a yes to the moment and with a yes to you existing in this moment. So even if you are fleeing, like being run by fear instead of rage, you are leaving your standpoint. You are leaving what you want to fight for. And rage is the basic energy that allows us to switch from disembodiment to embodiment, which is aliveness. So the moment that I'm alive, there is, like the moment I step into the core of rage is the moment that the fight ends, because the outer world ends. And we are always stuck on the way. Like I start with my rage, so you are the bad one and I will kill you now. Yes, that's a phase. But if that phase in myself as a wave goes through, I end up with being free from you having an impact that couldn't be welcomed by me. Or won't be welcomed by me. Like rage basically ends my fear. So in that way, the core of rage is the softest and most surrendered way of being. It's interesting because the recording is there again.
Okay. Yes, I just stopped it for a moment. So the last thing that I heard was at the core, rage is, so you said rage, yeah, fully stepping into rage is the absence of fear, and then the core of rage, and then you broke off.
I mean, what I said, but I do not know if exactly in those terms, is that the core of rage is like the deepest way of softness and being surrendered or being dedicated to the situation instead of putting it into bad or good things. And that's so wonderful because there we have the mission and the full deletion by life. Or we have this full embodiment of dignity and I'm here no matter what. And exactly therefore, I do not need to have any kind of enemy. The moment that I'm in danger by your ongoing mindfucks is the moment that I'm a victim.
Yes.
And it's wonderful because like what I learned so much from you are those terms of the men's movement, and they are onto the right track. It is about the hero and it is about the focus. And at the same time, it doesn't exclude the softness or the openness or the connectedness to everything around. Quite the opposite. This is the path that has the energy. The path of insight just has, it has the aim, it has the goal, it has the truth, but the truth is empty because it's disembodied, so it doesn't have the energy. And the energy is waiting on the other side of the game. So exit the game not by going back into a more informed state in your mind, but surrendering deeper to your body. Like exactly as you say, embody your mission. And I would even say your embodiment is your mission.
Yes.
So in order to find your mission, give it away.
Yes. Let go of any ideas you might have about your mission. Yes.
If you want to look good in your mission, you are not onto a mission. You are onto a new kind of makeup.
Yes.
Which is fine, but it's not a mission.
It might be organic and fair trade, but still makeup.
Yeah, it's still covering what is underneath.
Yes.
And what is underneath of the mind is the body. Go there. And again, I'm so sorry, but for men, this is an even tougher challenge due to the conditioning. But also, I'm so curious. I mean, how nourishing. Embodied men, embodying qualities that are deeply ingrained in those nervous systems. Wow. What a contribution.
Yay.
Yay.
Stopping point. Thank you.
Thank you. So much fun.